Is that what you're going to tell Jesus? Well, Jesus, you don't understand. I didn't have a job because I also ignored what you said, and I got really, really badly in debt, and I had to pay off my debt, and it was really important for me to say it. And frankly, I just didn't want to get in trouble anymore. I didn't want to lose my job. And I wouldn't have been able to buy my kid that Christmas present if I did that. You understand, Jesus. So just let me in. Because Jesus says, if you deny me before man, I will deny you in heaven. Those are kind of scary words to me. And yes, I believe that whenever we use the phrase happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, whenever we give in to culture telling us to use happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, that's what we are doing. We are denying Christ. And when we deny Christ before man, he will deny us in heaven. Hey folks, welcome to Uncommon Sense in Current Times. I'm Peter Demas. Today we're going to be talking about something that is going to be unusual, I would think, that what many people are going to be talking about during this season, because right now we just had an election. Trump was in office. He's picking his cabinet. Inauguration's about to occur. We've had a whole lot of political issues that are occurring. But frankly, I want to talk about an issue that occurs every year, and that we seem to have a multitude of problems among Christians and non-Christians over this issue that to me shouldn't be an issue at all. I talked about it last year on my Facebook page. Facebook took it down and for a period of time, and then they brought it back up sometime in mid-January, and that was the idea that it was the preference of saying Happy Holidays and Merry Christmas. And the reasons why we say Happy Holidays, and frankly, the reasons why we're saying Happy Holidays is illogical. It makes zero sense on why we're wanting to do it. I don't understand this whole concept behind it. And when you start kind of digging into the reasons why, all it is a means of rooting out Christmas and Christianity and taking Christian holidays out. And it's just little subtle things that we need to be aware of and be mindful of. And sometimes when we get caught up in what is happening, especially in the political systems and the political worlds that's happening around us, then we start to see a lot of the stuff that frankly that is more important. And I don't know anything that would be more important than Christ. And so when I talk about that, when I talk about these situations, that's the reason why. And I think it's important that we understand it and know it going into this next season. This season, obviously, between Thanksgiving and Christmas is a shorter season than usual. But you'll start hearing it and you start seeing it. It's the happy holidays. You start seeing in business starts to advertise it. You know, what people claim is it's a means of inclusivity. It's a means of including other holidays, other things that we don't want to exclude or offend somebody. You know, there are people out there that observe Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, winter solstice. There are many other things that are in there. And so by using this inclusive phrase of happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, and businesses start forcing people to say happy holidays because they don't want to offend, then I want to really address this issue. How do we respond in a situation where somebody says it? Should we say it when your boss is telling you you must say happy holidays and not say Merry Christmas? What is it that we're actually doing? So one of the arguments that I hear, and I hear quite frequently on this matter, is whether or not, is Christmas considered to be is it always going to have to be on December 25th? Since Christmas is not really December 25th. We don't know when Christ was born. We don't have the date on it. And so therefore, what difference does it make? Well, first of all, Christmas is not about December 25th. It's not about that. Christmas is about the amazing thing God did for us. God came to us in the world as a man in order to die for us so that our sins can be forgiven. This includes the sins that you did yesterday. This includes the sin you did today. These includes other sins that you may not even be aware of. But it's to forgive us for these things that we've done. So many people think that their sins are not forgivable, but frankly it is. And it is for two reasons. One, Christ was born as a man to us and for us, and then Christ died and was resurrected, and he resurrected himself and went to heaven for us. And so these are very two critical foundations of what is happening with Christmas. Now, I get all into the Christmas spirit, and I get into the secular part of it. I believe, of hanging the stockings and decorating the homes and buying gifts for other people. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Anytime that I can do something to celebrate Christ, I think it's important to do so. But to be honest with you, when I was not a Christian, I celebrated Christmas just as enthusiastically. The difference was I celebrated it in the sense of I enjoyed the holiday. I enjoyed spending the time with my family, and I enjoyed searching the right gifts to get people and doing that stuff. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I still enjoy that aspect of it. Now, the difference is, though, is I understand and recognize who I'm celebrating when I'm doing it. I'm not celebrating the what, I'm celebrating the who. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't allow the secular traditions of it to take away, to detract from the real purpose of the season. So I'm all in. I'm all in when it comes to it. And I don't care how we celebrate it. I don't care what your particular Christmas tradition is. We are going to. I'm just all in. I'm going to celebrate it no matter what. In Luke chapter 2, that is the most people know the whole story of Luke from the Charlie Brown special when he talks about Christ, and we will address it a little bit more. But in verses 10, the angels came and told the shepherds. He says, I bring you good news that'll cause great joy for all the people. He doesn't say I'm going to bring you great happiness. And I think there's a distinction here that we need to make. This is part of the problem I have with happy holidays versus Merry Christmas. I think that there is something there to be said that we kind of push, and we think that happiness is our ultimate goal and responsibility. Now, if we said Happy Christmas, and I know that is common in many other cultures, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I do think it's something that we need to look at. Because again, why Christ came was to bring us great joy and not happiness. And there's a difference between these two these two emotions that come. Happiness comes from external circumstances. They come from experiences. Like if you get a goal, you get good news, you get a great Christmas gift. You can get happiness for a moment. It's a momentary satisfaction. It's all based on external stimuli. Joy comes from within. It is rooted with a connection with who you are. It's rooted with a connection of who you are in relation to Christ is where joy comes from. It's not dependent upon external stimuli. I can have a lot of terrible things happen to me. This year has been an horrible year. I've been engaged in a lot of problems that frankly nobody wants to have, and yet I've still been able to maintain joy. I've still been able to maintain this, not because these circumstances give me reason to celebrate, but they are something that is something that is rooted much deeper than that, and it deals with the connection of who Christ is and what He's done for me and where I'm going to be. No matter what happens to me externally, you can't take away who I am. I'm a child of God. You can't take that away. You can jail me, you can sue me, you can beat me, you can do whatever you want to. It does not take away who I am and who I belong to. Happiness is fleeting, it's temporary. Joy is stable. A lot of times we confuse happiness with, in a Christian perspective, with blessings based off of earthly events. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not opposed to blessings. I want them. I like having earthly blessings. I do enjoy them. Provided that I don't allow it to detract from what is a real blessing, and that is being a child of God. Joy, though, is a fruit of the Spirit. In Galatians 5:22-23, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit. It talks about joy being one of those fruits. It is independent of life's challenges. For example, Paul, when he was in Philippi, or when he was in Rome, and he was writing to the church of Philippi. He says that I'm experiencing joy even in suffering. He was in jail. The Roman jails were not easy. He was suffering during that point in time. He was able to... Have you ever been stranded with a flat tire in the middle of nowhere? My first semester home from college, I was driving back to college, and that's what happened. I was halfway between two places, a couple miles from the exits, and I had to walk miles in the cold to get to a phone. That's why I would have loved at that point in time to have Air Moto, and that's why I bought it for my wife and kids, especially when they're traveling to remote places. With Air Moto, they don't have to depend on anyone else for help. They don't have to depend on walking or waiting in their car, hoping that nobody comes along while they're waiting for their friends or family to pick them up. This compact, high-quality tool is always ready to go. You can put it right in the glove box, and it can actually inflate all 4 vehicle tires in a matter of minutes. It's powerful, it's reliable, and it gives my family peace of mind. Air Moto keeps us prepared for all the things that could happen to us with our tires while we're going. It's a great Christmas gift this year, and it'll just help you kind of just feel very comfortable for your wife and family as they travel. So highly encourage you to get it. You can go to airmoto.com, or you can check out the link below in there and click through the link in order to order yours today. To be joy-filled during those moments. So again, personally, I think when you start saying happy holidays, you're messing it up. But really, the issue isn't the word happy. That's just kind of a little side note that I think is just kind of important to talk about and let people understand when the Bible talks about Christ bringing joy. I think it's important that we understand exactly what that means, that we're not tying it into a happiness that's out there. Too often we put too much emphasis on it, and I think we need to stop doing that and stop looking at that whatsoever. If the elections did not go the way you want it to go, or the elections went the way, or wouldn't have gone the way it did go, that wouldn't impact your joy. That could impact your happiness. So again, I think that's something that's important that we look at, and it doesn't change how we react to different things, or shouldn't change how we react. However, I do want to look at the term holidays. Holidays is originally came from the term holy days. It was actually something that was strictly only meant for religious purposes. In the United States, we didn't start adding to a secular version of a holiday until we had Independence Day, July 4th, and Labor Day were the first 2 secular holidays, and we started moving it from the transition from holy to a holiday. And now all of a sudden we have to include everything under this. But again, the original basis of this, and when we originally talked about what a holiday was, it was originally a holy day. It is not supposed to be inclusive of all these other things that are happening around. Now, I know there is a lot of stress that it comes around Christmas. And a lot of, but that stress has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. That stress has to do with the secular nature of which Christmas brings. It's the stress of, again, making certain that you have gifts, making certain that you can afford the gifts and not end up in a whole lot of debt going into January on it. Not knowing what house to go to. I mean, that's a stressful thing when you're married, and I can't imagine what it's like if you're children of a parents who are divorced and they have their own different traditions, and they have to deal with their parents that are still alive. There's a lot of stress involved in traveling and going back and forth and figuring out how to do it. And then these people do a secret Santa. These people do a dirty Santa. These people pull names out of a hat. There's just all these different things that we focus on that shouldn't be there. Again, remember, Jesus was born to deliver us from our sins. That's what's important. And we all have sinned, and the wages of sin is death. But he gave us a free gift of life. The gift of God is eternal life. Through Christ, we celebrate because God humbled himself to come down to where we are. It's so incredible to think about it. He loves us so much that he was willing to do that for us, that he was that merciful to us. We see God's mercy all the way through different things in the Old Testament through remnant, that he would leave people in different circumstances, and even when he was punishing the nations, he would make certain that there was people that were saved and that were talked through. And I know, or not talked through. There were people that were saved and was able to allow to either go back into Israel and start over. We see people that were protected, and then we see where he's wiped out countries and cultures, and that's kind of confusing. But recognize that God's mercy is something that we can't fully grasp and understand, but he is merciful. Now the difference is that he's done something to make it simple for people to do, which is to acknowledge him and believe that he is Lord. And what we're trying to do is by changing, getting rid of the words Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays, it's just a subtle way of us trying to eliminate that, to get rid of that, to make certain that we don't acknowledge the simplicity of which he's and the amazing thing of which he's done. So why is December 25th? So again, I talked about it earlier. So why do we pick that date? Why is it there? There's several different reasons on it. There's been a lot of different reasons. There's just a couple that I want to talk about. First of all, some people believe, some Roman believers thought that the conception was on March 25th, and therefore 9 months later was December 25th. The winter solstice in the third century was on December the 25th. Sometimes Christians, some people say that Christians wanted to co-opt the pagan holiday, and Constantine wanted to loosen the pagan celebrations in the country, so he tried to combine it, and by doing this to turn Rome into a Christian country. But here's the question I have. Those that challenge you to say, well, Christmas isn't really about December 25th. Christ wasn't really born on December 25th. Why does it matter? It's a tradition that we've been celebrating for hundreds of years on this particular date. Why does it matter? Are you going to tell me that every birthday celebration you've had has been only on your birthday, and you were not allowed to celebrate your birthday on any other particular day? If you happen to be, you didn't, even as a child, did you only celebrate it? You never celebrated, had birthday parties on your weekend. It wasn't on the date you were born. Are we really thinking about it in that sense? Does it really matter what date we celebrate? But what we have done is we passed along traditions to say, this is the day we're going to celebrate the birth of our Christ, the birth of our Lord, the birth of our Savior. This is who we are going to celebrate on this particular day. So if you don't want to celebrate on December 25th, that's fine. Don't celebrate on December 25th. Celebrate on the day that you want to, but pick that day, be specific with it. Find out, whatever reason you have. But what's not important is the day you celebrate, it's who you celebrate. But right now, when you look at it from a cultural perspective, from a historical perspective, December 25th happens to be the day that most of us do it. It's not like we had birth certificates and hospital records back in the time. When Jesus was born, he was born in a manger in an inn. It's not something we have to necessarily say it has to be on that day. Again, we can celebrate it whenever. It is irrelevant on when we celebrate it, but it's important that we celebrate it. But since we have celebrated for hundreds and hundreds of years, I think it's important to remind us and to be able to share this gospel and to share the good news with other believers and other people who aren't believers on it. To be able to celebrate with other people who do believe. All of this stuff occurs at the same time, and I think it's important for the church and the church as a whole to be able to unify around certain things, such as Christmas, such as Easter. We can say, well, we have an opportunity to be able to tell people that Jesus was born for you. This gives us opportunities and talking points to be able to do it. Not to say Jesus was born on December 25th. It is to say that, look, Jesus was born and he was born for you. This is why it's important. It gives us an opportunity, a pretty safe opportunity to have conversations with non-believers on why Christmas is important. So there is the date, and it doesn't really matter. So then, if it doesn't really matter on the date, why not just say Happy Holidays? What does that matter? Why is that a big deal? Why is it that crazy people like me have to make this huge issue out of saying Merry Christmas? Like, who cares if Christmas is included? You put up your Christmas tree and you can believe in Christmas all you want to. What difference does it make? I mean, after all, it's included. Like, Christmas, it's not like we're excluding Christmas out of when we say Happy Holidays, right? I mean, that's what the arguments are that I hear. That's the arguments on why they say that's part of the problem. So I have to ask you this. If we want to be inclusive of other holidays, why don't we look at exactly what holidays that we have to include into this? Because and how we're defining it. And I think a lot of times what you find when people that say happy holidays, they don't know which holidays they're talking about. They don't understand like what holidays they're grouping in. And I think again it's illogical when you look at the what holidays there are during this point in time. When you say, hey, this is what's happening during this point in time, that we are I think it's important that when you look at them, that you recognize that this is an attack upon Christianity. So let's look at it this way. In the United States, there's 11 federal holidays. Okay, there's New Year's Day, Martin Luther King's birthday, Washington's birthday, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, National Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. These are the 11 federal recognized holidays. So between Labor Day and Veterans Day, there's 67 days and 3 holidays. That means there's one holiday every 22 days. Between New Year's Day and Washington's birthday, sometimes President's Day, because it includes Lincoln in that, there's 49 days, and there's 3 holidays over that period of time, one out of 16.3 days. Between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve, which includes Christmas, there's 39 days and 3 holidays, which makes 1 out of every 13 days. So it kind of makes sense. Say, hey, look, we want to lump these together because, 1 out of every 13 days, there's a holiday. So why don't we just group it together and just say happy holidays since it does that? But it fails when you look at between Memorial Day and July 4th. There's 38 days and 3 holidays. That means there's 1 holiday out of every 12.6 days. So why not in the month of May, June, and July say happy holidays? Why do we exclude it during Thanksgiving and New Year's? There's actually more federal holidays between May, June, and July than there is between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's more holidays during that period of time. So why not include happy holidays during that point in time? Well, those are just federal recognized holidays. People say, well, it's the other cultures we're looking at. We don't want to exclude other people. We want to be inclusive. It's all about not wanting to offend somebody. There are many other religious holidays that occur in the month of December. So we got to be respectful of this. So I said, okay, we're going to look these up. Why don't we look them up together and find out? So let's look at all the religious holidays throughout the year. There are many Christian holidays, as well. There's Easter is a great example. Again, I've talked about it. That's a major holiday for us. And again, we don't just celebrate, Christmas. We celebrate Easter. We celebrate other areas. But let's look at it from it. So in the month of December, around this type of thing, there is a Bodhi day. That is a Buddhist religion, a religious holiday. It was on December the 8th. Hanukkah, it's the Jewish holiday. It's the celebration of light, the festival of lights. And sometimes it ends at different times. Between 2017 and 2029, Hanukkah will end after Christmas 3 separate times. But sometimes it ends beforehand. Last year it ended on December the 15th. And since Christmas is on December 25th, when Hanukkah ended last year on December the 15th, then you have to ask on December the 16th, is it okay now to say Merry Christmas because we run out of religious holidays? I mean, Bodhi Day ends on December the 8th. Hanukkah ended on December 15th. So on December 16th, can I just go ahead and start saying Merry Christmas? Is that what's happening? And they're like, well, there's Kwanzaa, there's New Year's Day, there's Thanksgiving. But these aren't religious holidays. These are secular holidays. So we're not trying to, if we're really trying to be inclusive to other religious groups and other religious people, then why we're lumping them together doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, particularly when they seem to end at a point in time and we continue to say happy holidays after that. The Demas' family has been in the restaurant business for many generations. We have been serving people in the Middle Tennessee market for 34 years. Try our spaghetti kits, our pot roast, which we slow cook for 4 hours, or our world famous baked chicken and rice soup, which many locals have dubbed Greek penicillin for when you feel under the weather. We make our food fresh, and upon placing our order with us, we freeze the order and send it to your house. Demas's is more than a business. 5 generations of restaurant operators have taught us many things about food, but more importantly, we have recognized that we don't sell food. We sell the experience of bringing people and families together, which our country desperately needs. So go to DemasFamilyKitchen.com and share in this journey today. And for right now, use the code UNCOMMON to get 10% off of your order. That's DemasFamilyKitchen.com. Diwali, for example, is normally in November. It usually occurs before Thanksgiving, and if we're looking at that, we can talk about, sometimes it occurs before Halloween, but we could talk about Halloween as well. But here's the thing, when we look at the language of it, here's the funny thing about it. We say Happy Halloween, October 31st. We say Happy Thanksgiving, sometime in November. We then say Happy Holidays. And then after Happy Holidays, we say, or after Christmas, we say Happy New Year's. So in reality, is the only one we're excluding during this point in time is Christmas. Because we say Happy Thanksgiving during times when there are other religious and cultural holidays that occurred around Thanksgiving and sometimes a little bit after. But yet at the same time, we never switch over to say Merry Christmas. We never talk about Christmas at that point in time during the Christmas season. Even if you want to argue that these other holidays are just equally as important, it does not matter because we are looking at Christmas as a holiday and not including from the others that are in it. We aren't including those. I guarantee that the bulk of people who say happy holidays couldn't even not only list the holidays that are there, but definitely couldn't tell you the days that happen to be that happen to fall under that realm of when it. Ask them when Diwali is or Kwanzaa or anything else along those lines. I guarantee most people could not answer all of them that are there, but almost all of them can tell you when Christmas Day is. So why is it that Christmas is the one that gets excluded the most? And to some extent, Hanukkah also does as well. I think it's important to say Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends, but it doesn't do it as a means of excluding Christmas. I'm not trying to lump it in with everything else. So now let's say we're going to look at again the number of holidays and the number of religious holidays that happen to occur. Because again, that seems to fail as well. At Stanford University, they have a religious calendar, and there's 8 religious holidays in the month of March that need to be recognized. There's 5 in the month of November and December combined. So in 2 months, there's 5. There's 8 in March. So why aren't we saying happy holidays in the month of March to be inclusive of all religious holidays? I mean, it's more than double the number of holidays. So why do we limit it? Why do we limit happy holidays only to December to include all the religious holidays in December when there's more in March? That doesn't make any sense. So even if I go to holidayinsights.com and looked at the major holidays by month, this is what we see. In January, there's 9. In February, there's 10 to 11, depending on if there's leap day or not. This is all holidays, by the way. In March, there's 8. In April, there's 11. May, there's 10. June, there's 5. July, there's 4. August, 7. September, 10. October, there's 12. November, there's 12. And December, there's 11. So once again, October has 12, November has 12, and these two have more holidays in it than the month of December. So again, if we want to include secular holidays in it, why aren't we saying happy holidays in October and November? Instead, what do? Happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving, and ignore a lot of these other holidays that are around. So far, the reasons that I see, and I listed all these reasons here, whether or not we're looking at federal holidays, religious holidays, we're looking at secular holidays, however we look at it, it makes more sense to be more inclusive to say happy holidays in March. It's more inclusive to say happy holidays in October, November, and May. But I've yet to find one time that happy holidays is appropriate as a means of inclusivity, if that's even a word, to be more inclusive in the month of December. Not one time is it that way and more in the month of December. So the only conclusion I can draw from this is that we're wanting to silence Christmas. We're wanting to silence the holiday of Christmas and a Christian holiday for that purpose. So when we're looking at happy holidays between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, again, why don't I include Halloween? Again, I mentioned earlier, why are we saying Halloween? What is it that's so special about Happy Halloween? And then again, stop saying Happy Holidays after Christmas. The only time we include Christmas, or the only time we use Happy Holidays throughout the entire year, is to exclude Christmas. We start it before the previous major holiday and end it right after Christmas. We literally end it on December 26th. We don't say that phrase anymore on December 26th. I mean, but people are like, well, I don't want to offend. I don't want to offend people because, again, there's still Hanukkah, and I don't want to offend that. Well, when you look at people saying I don't want to offend that didn't seem to play out with the Jewish against the Jewish people. When I looked at these liberals on college campuses that were saying from the river to the sea, when they were wanting to, when they're advocating genocide, and we're seeing the anti-Semitism over and over and over again. But when it comes to happy holidays, we want to make certain we don't offend them by saying that. We want to say we want to kill every bit of you, and we want to take away your land and your right to exist as a sovereign nation, but we don't want to offend you by saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Hanukkah. Again, that's just equally as absurd. But I could also argue that trying just to lump in Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah into one particular area, and just to combine those as happy holidays, to combine those two messages in that way, to be able to do so in such a way, what does that actually tell you? Again, we are attacking the Judeo-Christian God. That's who we are attacking. We can say we don't want to offend. We can say all this other stuff. But if you truly cared about the Jewish traditions and these other people, then why is it that you're saying Happy New Year? The Jewish people say I have New Year's in September. So why are you not afraid of offending somebody who is Jewish when you say Happy New Year for December 31st? For that matter, why are you not worried about offending a Chinese person? Because their holiday is in February. If we are so every time we say Happy New Year, or if we say Happy Valentine's Day when we're celebrating, during the time of the Chinese New Year, is that not offensive? Why is it that in December it is uniquely offensive to exclude these groups for Christmas, but it's not when it comes to other holidays that seem to matter? Incidentally, if we truly don't want to offend other groups, then why do we celebrate Pride Month? Why are we celebrating a month that specifically excludes and that throws up God's law, an entire month for it? Why do we celebrate other months that are specifically target certain groups and certain individuals? It doesn't make any sense. Why do we celebrate Thanksgiving and say Happy Thanksgiving when to the American Indian people that could be very offensive? Why do we celebrate Halloween? Because Halloween can be very offensive to other people as well. But New Year's, I want to stick with New Year's for a bit, because most Western countries celebrate January 1st. It's as the New Year's Day. But again, the Chinese New Year, it's a lunar New Year. They celebrate late January to mid-February. The Islamic New Year, that date shifts annually. Sometimes it just varies on when that is on it, but it's not celebrated on December or January 1st. Again, we talked about the Jewish New Year, which varies, but sometimes it's September, October. The Hindu New Year actually varies by religion. There's, they can't even agree on the New Year depending on the different types of communities. There's some that celebrate in October, November, some March and April, some that's April 13th or 14th. There's the Persian New Year's, which is sometimes March 20th, 21st. There's Thai New Year, which is April 13th through 15th. There's the Ethiopian New Year, September 11th. There's the Korean New Year, which is late January to mid-February. There's the Vietnamese New Year, late January to mid-February. There's the from Bali in Indonesia. It varies, but it's around March generally. Sri Lanka, their New Year is April 13th through 14th. If you don't want to be offensive when you say Happy New Year, especially to the Aboriginal people of Australia, there's different times there when the seasons change. Orthodox Christians, by the way, celebrate New Year January the 14th. These would be Orthodox Christians that are maybe Russia and Serbia, other parts of Eastern Europe. They follow the Julian calendar, because it's 13 days behind the calendar that the rest of us follow. Zulu New Year, sometime in August and September. I mean, why aren't we worried about that when we say Happy New Year? And in all these months that I talked about, March, April, September, mid-January, February, when I talk about these things, why do we have no issue whatsoever saying or specifying other things like Valentine's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day? Why are we having April Fool's Day? Why are we worried about offending people and offending their cultures when they celebrate New Year's on a particular different day, completely different day? Why do we worry about that? The reason why is because these cultures aren't Christian-based. These cultures outside of the Orthodox Christian, which again is just a couple weeks later, outside of that, these aren't Christian-based. We don't have to worry about hurting their feelings. It's not based off of a religious perspective. It's based off of a calendar that was set forth by Rome. We lump the happy holidays to be inclusive, but we do it in such an irrational basis to be able to do so. There's no other rational reason except to silence Christianity. There's no other reason except to silence what Christmas is about. Again, not about December 25th. It's about what God's done for us. So the other problem that we're doing when we say this and when we say happy holidays is we're placing every other holiday on equal footing to Christmas. We're saying that what Christ did for us, what our Father in heaven did for us, we should never allow ourselves to not put Christ first in our context. And by just lumping it in and including it, that's exactly what we're doing. When we don't elevate Christ, one of the persons of the Trinity, when we don't elevate him and put him above all things, all we're doing is we're putting false gods in front of us. That's all we're doing. When we include it with these other holidays, that's exactly what we're doing. We're easily breaking one of the simple 10 commandments of "Thou shalt not have false gods" before us. There's idols that's there. Here's the 10 commandments right behind me. It's very important that there is no way that we can be perfect with it, which is why he came. But we ought to do the best we possibly can. And saying happy holidays, in my opinion, is a huge way of looking at this and being able to say, this is what we're doing. We're actually violating one of God's laws and the principles that God set forth for us in order to have a better, more secure relationship with him. You know, there are times where we have to tell our bosses and political leaders, we have to be able to say no. I wrote an entire book on the duty of Christian civil disobedience. People look at that as a means of saying a protest, but reality is what that is about. That is about the times that we need to be able to say no as a Christian and when we need to do so. We have to be able to tell our bosses, we have to be able to tell people, we cannot say happy holidays because it conflicts with my belief system. That what it does is it conflicts with what God's word was set forth for us. That when we have when God is telling us one thing and man is telling us to do something else, we are to obey God and not man. That's what the apostles told us in Acts. That's what not told us, but that's what they told the Pharisees and Sadducees with the Sanhedrin. They told them, we can't do that. We have to obey God. When God says, you cannot put me on equal footing, that you cannot have any other false gods the same with me, what are you doing? You're disobeying what God has asked you to do. We cannot as a Christian give in to saying happy holidays and not saying Merry Christmas. I can't, and many of you say, well, I cannot rock the boat. I don't want to rock the boat. I might lose my job. I still might offend somebody. How are you going to handle that when you approach Jesus? Because everybody has to face Jesus. Whether you believe or don't believe, you're going to face Jesus one day. How are you going to do it? What are you going to tell him? Well, I didn't want to rock the boat. I know you said, Jesus, that you came to bring division, but I didn't really want to rock the boat because I thought you were wrong in that it should all be about love and inclusivity. Is that what you're going to tell Jesus? Well, Jesus, you don't understand. I didn't have a job because I also ignored what you said, and I got really, really badly in debt, and I had to pay off my debt, and it was really important for me to say it. And frankly, I just didn't want to get in trouble anymore. I didn't want to lose my job, and I wouldn't have been able to buy my kid that Christmas present if I did that. You understand, Jesus, so just let me in. Because Jesus says, if you deny me before man, I will deny you in heaven. Those are kind of scary words to me. And yes, I believe that whenever we use the phrase happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, whenever we give in to culture telling us to use happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas, that's what we are doing. We are denying Christ. And when we deny Christ before man, he will deny us in heaven. In Acts 5, we see that when Peter and the other disciples were ordered to stop talking about Jesus, they responded, "We obey God and not man." In 2020, we saw something we never thought we could see in this country. They shut down our churches. After decades of removing God from schools and public institutions, they went straight at our community. Unfortunately, we as Christians did not know what to do. And even worse, we chose to listen to false prophets masquerading as Christians on how to respond. I recognize this is the only beginning, and we need to know how to respond. We have a duty to say no to unjust laws, but as Christians, we have a greater duty to God. In my book, On the Duty of Christian Civil Disobedience, I use biblical teachings to help believers know when and how to stand up to those in charge when they ask us to commit evil. You can go to peterdemas.org to find out about our duty to say no. And when you type in the code UNCOMMON, you can get 10% off your order. That's UNCOMMON at peterdemas.org. Remember, we are to obey God and not man. So we have a duty to say no. Now, I'm not doing it with the intent to offend people, but frankly, the idea of Christmas and the idea of saying Merry Christmas, the terms Merry Christmas has been a culture since the 1600s. There's been countless songs, movies, plays. How are we going to eliminate all that? These same places that are required to say Happy Holidays have over the radio a Christmas song that says Merry Christmas. It could be All I Want for Christmas is My Two Front Teeth. How on earth can they be consistent in their beliefs by playing a song about Christmas? By playing a song, the Little Drummer Boy, by playing the song of Mary Did You Know. They'll play the song over the intercom systems. And at the same time tell you you aren't allowed to say the word Christmas. The hypocrisy in that. If they want to be consistent, if they want to say, we don't want to believe in this, then let them be consistent. They can just not play that music. They can not try to run Christmas specials and talk about it at all. They cannot sell Christmas wrapping paper. They cannot sell Christmas cards. If they don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine. They don't have to do it. There's nothing wrong with them choosing not to celebrate Christmas. At least from my perspective of it, there's something wrong when they go and approach Jesus one day. But from my perspective, they don't. But they need to be consistent. They can't on one hand turn around and tell you, oh, you can't say it, but it's okay for us to say it. You can't say it, but we can sell something that has the word on it. We can have the ugly Christmas sweater or the ugly holidays sweater. How are they saying it? Are they going to be consistent on that? I find it really kind of funny when you see atheists or you see people that really don't celebrate the birth of Christ the way that we ought to celebrate the birth of Christ, exchange Christmas gifts. If you don't want to celebrate the birth of Christ, then why are you celebrating the traditions that come along with it? Why do you even receive the gift? If somebody's going to give you a gift, why do you receive it? When I was in law school, I had a friend who was a devout atheist. I have to say, he's the one that kind of taught me this, because we were talking about it and I was going to get him a Christmas gift and he refused. He said no. He thanked me for the thinking of him piece of it, but he refused to accept Christmas gifts. He says because it would be hypocritical of him to accept a Christmas gift when he didn't acknowledge the birth of Christ ever existed. Now, he's wrong. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. He's just flat wrong. And I don't know what's happened to him. I've lost touch with him throughout the years, and I pray that he now recognizes he's wrong and has been able to accept Jesus as his Lord and Savior. But I can at least at that moment respect the consistency of his opinion by not doing that. Right now, Happy Holidays is offensive to me, and it ought to be offensive to you. Now, when I get offended, do I go about screaming and yelling? Somebody says Happy Holidays. Do I turn around and be like, it's Christmas? No, we don't do that. That's ridiculous. We aren't going to sit there and make other people feel bad because they may not understand it. Now, it all depends on the circumstances. Sometimes I just respond back, thank you, Merry Christmas. That's what I do most of the time. Sometimes I just say thank you because I get kind of caught off guard. I'm kind of caught in it, and I'm just like, and if I try to say Merry Christmas afterward, it's going to sound kind of weird to do it. But sometimes, if depending on the circumstances, I can ask them why they chose to say Happy Holidays over it. I might choose to say, what holidays that's being celebrated. I can talk to them about why it's important for it, but a lot of it just kind of depends on the context and where it is. But if I happen to be walking out of a store and the security guard tells me Happy Holidays as I'm walking out, that's not really an appropriate time necessarily for me to engage in that conversation. Now, if I happen to know the security guard, I see him every day, then I might talk to him about it. If it is a situation where I'm sitting down at a table and a server and I'm the only person that's in the restaurant that time and they greet the table with Happy Holidays, I might engage in a conversation with them throughout the course of the meal. Everything kind of depends on the context of it. But we have to remember that we're ambassadors to Christ and that we represent Christ in all things that we do, which means we don't need to say Happy Holidays. Again, if your boss is telling you, you can be polite. You don't have to scream at your boss and tell no and get offended. You can accept the consequences that come from not saying Happy Holidays. If you say Merry Christmas to somebody and they yell and scream at you saying Happy Holidays, don't correct. That's their problem. If somebody has that much anger in them, remember this, that you have to only deal with them for a few minutes. They have to deal with themselves 24 hours out of a day. Feel sorry for them, pray for them, hoping that they can find joy. Because there's only, joy and peace can only come through Christ. And somebody who is that upset over something like that, they clearly don't know who Christ is. And we need to pray for them and make certain that they have it. At the very, very minimum, we can at least feel sorry for them because they have that much anger built up inside of them. So I want to encourage you during this Christmas season to stay strong, to stay calm. And when the stresses start to get you, and especially as we start following the secular traditions and and start to ignore what Christ has done for us, stop and think about it. Really think about what Christ has done and think about what those angels have said, that they are here to bring good news and joy. And focus on that piece of it and recognize this other stuff doesn't matter. Because if they take away Christmas whatsoever, they can't take away who you are. If they take away who that is, they can't take away Christ from you. So I hope this helps, and I hope this helps you understand why it's important that we use Merry Christmas. In the meantime, what I would like to do here is actually read the part of the Bible that I think is important for us here, because this is the whole reason why we celebrate Christmas. And this comes from Luke chapter 2. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth to Galilee, to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over the flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. Imagine how terrified they were. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloth and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. So for all of you out there who may not believe, who may not understand, this is important. And I encourage you to spend time in that word, reading this and understanding this. And know that God loves you, that he loves you so much that he came down, he humbled himself to become like us. And it's important, it's so important that it's worth honoring him by not excluding a holiday in which to celebrate him. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, and I hope it is absolutely wonderful and blessed and full of joy. Thank you again. God bless you.